get my 6. Alas, the time has come this evening to venture into the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch forest. Good news, because as I talk about a bunch of stuff that may or may not be pertinent, I'm happy to tell you that one of these things of which I will speak, which may or may not be pertinent, is what this channel is actually about, because I believe we finally figured it out. Potentially. All right, it's about, well, who do we have to thank first? Joan Collins. Yes, legendary 88 years young actress who still has great legs. Got to thank Joan. And I was looking at the camera funny because I thought I saw something back there. If you thought you saw it too, keep watching. I'm going to stand here for just a second. 88, still got great legs. And you know, she's not just a wonderful actress. She's an amazing writer and a very successful author. If you didn't know, Joan Collins has sold more than 50 million copies of her books. She started from very humble beginnings. She's an entirely self-made woman, and she's got a net worth somewhere knocking on the door of $100 million US. I've got something she said here recently that I'm going to share with you. I read it a few days ago, and I thought, man, Joan Collins knows exactly what my channel's about. But I can't just come out and say it. I think, I've got to give examples of people who have actually figured it out. So I've got that, a couple on here, but we're going to start, even though we started with Joan Collins, we're going to start again with a complete stranger that I met in the post office a couple days ago. I went to the post office. There was a man in there, probably 70-ish, and walked by him. I smiled. I said, "Hey, how are you?" He said, "Better than I deserve." And I stopped in my tracks for a couple of reasons, because I thought, well, number one, this guy gets it. And I said to him, I said, "Aren't we all?" And he says, "I believe we are." And I said, well, it's wonderful running into someone else who understands they're blessed and that their life is a wonderful situation to be in. And he smiled. He said, "Well, I sure do." He says, "I'm glad to run into someone else like you who sees it too." But what it was specifically that stopped me in my tracks when he said better than I deserve was this. I used to be friends with a man who is no longer among the living. He's passed on. He died probably 15 years ago. I'm going to give him a shout out. His name was Taylor. He was a retired teacher from Greene County, Virginia. And anytime you saw Taylor and you said to him, "Hey, Taylor, how you doing?" His name was Taylor Twyman. There's your shout out. A lot of folks watching this video maybe had him in school. Say, "Hey, Taylor, how you doing?" He'd say, "Better than I deserve." Now, let me tell you about the life Taylor lived. In his final days, Taylor, I believe, was confined to a wheelchair. I was actually overseas when he died. No, he died before I went. That's right. Going back 15 to 20 years here. He had one leg that was like a foot shorter than the other. So he walked with one of those shoes that had like 12 inches worth of rubber on the bottom. Had to have a cane or a walker until the point came when he was in a chair. He, in his own words, throughout his lifetime, had cancer from the tip of his nose to the end of his toes. He had cancer somewhere just about every other year or so. Went through treatment for that. He had other challenges, physical challenges. I don't like to use the word disabilities, because what I will tell you is that if you were to tell this guy he was disabled, he'd probably punch you and he might knock you out, because he believed he was blessed. He knew he couldn't do things physically that other people could, so he made up for what he lacked with his back, he did with his brain, and went into teaching. I believe he got a master's degree. I think he went down there to Virginia Tech, but we'll overlook that. He had a wonderful wife, a beautiful wife who was also a friend of mine. And I went to see her when I moved back to the U.S. here after being overseas for all those years. And unfortunately, I found out she's passed on too. She was an amazing woman. But if there was ever anybody in life who would have something to complain about, and you say, how you doing? Oh, I'm not doing good. I feel like crap today. Oh, this has me down. I have this physical problem. I have this illness. I'm just not feeling good today. It was this guy. But he was the guy who was always giving encouragement, who was always being positive, who was always cheering people up. And you could be having a day where maybe you didn't feel so great, maybe you were a little bit down, maybe you just had the blahs for some reason, and you go talk to him and you'd see the situation he was in, and all he was talking about is how blessed he was in his life, and about how he asked him, hey, how you doing? He said, better than I deserve. You think, man, this guy deserves so much better than this, but look at his positive attitude, you know? So, what's that have to do with this channel? What's that have to do? Is this what this channel's about? Okay. No, let me read you what Joan Collins said. Then I'm going to read you what a few other people said. This is a quote from an interview that Joan Collins gave, I think within the last week. It's going all over the internet from all kinds of different outlets. I copied and pasted it and printed it off here. Joan said this: I've worked hard all my life. Nobody has given me anything on a plate. But I wake up each morning thinking how fortunate I am. I'm very fit and healthy now, which is 88 years old, and she's got showgirl legs, okay? Knock on wood, she says. And I try to look after myself. Okay, so Joan Collins is proof that you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing. If you do. She hasn't. She's not old. Okay? But Joan comes across with an attitude of gratitude, and that has taken her so far in life, and it continues to do so. In this, they had pictures of this interview. I'm seeing something over there. I might have to switch camera angles. You think of an 88-year-old woman, you're thinking, well, they're interviewing her in an old folks' home, right? There was a picture of her on a yacht with her 55-year-old husband that's the same age as her son. So she's not slowing down. She's out there in the sun. She's swimming, and she's actually getting ready to go on tour and do some like stage acting. So that reminded me of something that I had written down once, and I posted it on my refrigerator. This is many years ago, and I would read this every morning, and it works. If you feel like maybe you would like to feel a little bit better about your situation, you might try this. You might write this down and put it beside your mirror, put it on your refrigerator. But I wrote this down. I got it out of a book. I didn't come up with this. This isn't my original work. But it's, be grateful each day for what you have, and you'll soon forget about what it is you think you need. Those words are powerful. Be grateful each day for what you have, and you will soon forget about what it is that you think you need. So many people, and at times I catch myself doing it too, we have this feeling of want or of lack, a feeling of lack. Well, maybe if I had this other thing, I'd feel a little bit better about myself. Well, and then how many times, and I think sometimes it takes age, it takes experience, it takes kind of living life a little bit. Like Dave Chappelle said, I've got buddies that are big fans of his. I'm not an anti-fan. I checked him out after they told me about him, and it was a different type of humor. But I love his attitude. He recently went off on Twitter, because I guess Twitter's trying to cancel him now, and he said, F Twitter, this is real life. A lot of times you have to experience real life before you can get to the point of realizing, okay, so I got the new truck. I don't feel better because I have a new truck. By the time I got my new truck, I knew that, because I'd gotten other things in the past that I thought would make me feel better, only to find out that they didn't. So I'm going to move on here at this point, because I don't want to belabor it. I didn't want to come out a few days ago when I first read this by Joan Collins, and say, this is what the channel's about, And I didn't want to come, the day I saw the guy at the post office and say, don't you get it? This is what the channel's about. The guy at the post office gets it, and he doesn't even watch this channel, potentially. But I think a lot of people do, and I'm going to tell you somebody who gets it, who does watch the channel, and I'm going to read a comment she left me because she could not leave it on YouTube. For some reason, she couldn't comment on my YouTube channel. Listen, I've said I'm not a name dropper in the past, right? Name droppers are typically people who want to come across as being seeming to be more important than they really are. People who haven't really done anything in life, but they want to make you think they have. So if they know somebody famous or they know somebody noteworthy, they'll say they'll drop that name all the time, thinking maybe you'll see a connection. Oh wow, you knew Muhammad Ali, so you must be great too. That doesn't mean anything. But it doesn't mean that but whatever. I don't name drop, but I'm going to do it here. I've been in communication with Mary Shelley. Yes, the author of Frankenstein. Whatever, I email back and forth with Mary Shelley. All right, here's my confession. It's not the real Mary Shelley. I mean, it's the real one. She's real, but it's not that Mary Shelley. It's not the 19-year-old girl who wrote Frankenstein. If you don't know the story behind that story, it's more interesting than the story. Mary Shelley was a 19-year-old girl when she wrote Frankenstein, the novel. She used to have sleepovers with her friends, and she was a wonderful storyteller, and she used to tell that story over and over. All night, the people would listen to her story, and they couldn't sleep. They'd be scared, and they would always say to her, you need to write that as a book. You need to write that as a book. And she finally did. At 19, she wrote it down, and thus was created one of the great monster novels in the history of literature. Isn't that an interesting story? No, but the Mary Shelley I'm talking about here lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. She got some books, some of my books I wrote, from our Etsy store so she could have them personally autographed, just like you could if you were to purchase books from our Etsy store. The link is in the description box below this video. And you get some really awesome personalized potential Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Crazy Lake bookmarks for each book you do purchase. All right, those are free. She mentioned in a message after she bought 7 books for the price of 6 for $99 and flat rate shipping for $15.50, saving her $35 overall. She said she tried to leave a comment on my channel, but she couldn't, blah, blah, blah. I messaged her back and I said, well, I don't know why that is, but I can assure you I did not block you. That's popular, is what I hear. I supposedly, sometimes people will leave a comment. They're like, how come I can't see my comment? You blocked me. Like, well, I just read your comment, but whatever. She says, and this gives big insight into what this channel's about. Listen closely. She says, I thoroughly enjoy your videos and dearlies and look forward to them. I've never had the urge to comment on YouTube up until now, so in that regard, I'm a newbie. What it does when I click the box to comment, it kicks it out to another page, which leads me to believe I'm not doing something right, LOL. So even though I don't speak up and support you, just know you have a loyal follower in Ohio. So right there, proof in the tasting of the pudding. She's never put a comment on my YouTube for me to block her in the first place. So anyway, she continues. My mom had a 100-acre farm, half in pasture for her cows and her vegetable gardens, and the other half in forest in Lewis County, Kentucky. She loved nature and carefully nurtured the trees, wild birds, and wildflowers which grew there, from the Virginia bluebells to the redbuds and dogwoods that grew wild on the hillside. She would have over 100 hummingbirds come visit her each year and hundreds of birds in her feeders in the winter. I lost her 5 years ago when she was 96 years old. I worry what will now become of her beloved little piece of heaven. You and dearly remind me a lot of her. Thank you for everything, Mary. I just caught this after talking about Joan Collins being 88 and about how, you don't stop playing because you get old because you stop playing. Mary's mother lived to be 96 years old, and I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that she was outside playing. It sounds like probably daily, nurturing the bees, feeding the hummingbirds, feeding the birds in the winter. 96. It's amazing how just if you just keep moving, just do anything, like gardening. And we've had the videos on here before about, people who will give other people a hard time because they spend time gardening when vegetables are so cheap. It's not about the vegetables. it's like so many people who always try to figure out what this channel is about. They're like, I came for the green bean and the corns, but I stayed for the Bigfoot Sasquatch. Or I came for the Bigfoot Sasquatch, learned a few things about arborism from your tree videos, but I like your stories, I stayed for the wisdom. It's about different things to different people. And here's another case in point. This is from Tanya Garton, who's over in Henrico County, Virginia. Now listen, Mary, Tanya, Joan Collins, I know none of you are like creepy internet stalker types. So because I'm giving you these shout outs and some of you live, relatively close to me, it doesn't mean that, I want you coming here. I'm not coming to your house. We get that, okay? We all get this. But I just want to share what you've said with other people here. So don't come over to go mountain biking riding with me in the mornings with a 6-pack, etc., etc. That's creepy, okay? But Tanya Garden, who didn't come across as creepy at all, she just happens to live in close proximity to me, commented, she says, well, hello neighbor, LOL. People love to say LOL. I'm surprised Joan Collins didn't say LOL in her video. She says, I'm in Virginia myself, and my parents were both born in West Virginia. Okay, they would do an edit correction there and make sure to point out it's West by God, Virginia, okay? Then she says, I'm located probably 45 minutes to an hour away from you in Henrico County, Virginia, close to New Kent and Charles City. Drove through there the last couple days, going down to Williamsburg to Busch Gardens. I remember many goth or emo kids, and I went through a punk rock kind of goth thing myself, but I love all animals and didn't have enough of the darkness, I suppose. Oh, I guess this comment was left on the video I did the other day about the witch I went to college with. That was creepy. That's the one called Make Sure the Kids Are Out of the Room Before Listening to This one. If you missed it, go listen. That's creepy. Okay. She says, I'm 46 now. I'm 47, so it's like, yeah, a lot in common here. I'm 46 now and probably more of a hippie spiritual kind of person these days. Me too. She says, I'm a peer recovery specialist for alcoholism, addiction, and mental health issues. I don't know what it is, but I relate to your stories in some way or another. We could make some pretty creepy connections there, but we won't. Not creepy. You know what? Just people relate to each other however it is they relate to each other, and there's nothing creepy about that, okay? And maybe there's things I say that wouldn't help people who can't relate to somebody that does, but to the person that can relate, maybe it helps a lot. That's what the channel's about. And if you're not one of the people that, get something out of it, you don't have to be mean and nasty. Just go watch a different channel, So anyway, she goes on, she says, I relate to your stories in some way or another. Maybe it's the Southern thing or something like that, but I do enjoy your stories and just want to say thank you for your time because it's important and I appreciate it. I appreciate it too, Tanya. Mary's story about her mother reminded me of one of my favorite trees, okay, here on my property. I'm going to show it to you here in a second. Tanya's story and what she does reminded me of people. And I really believe we can learn about people and we can learn about ourselves through nurturing trees, wildlife, plants, any sort of agriculture, herbiculture, arborism with the trees. That's my big thing. I love trees. I'm going to show you a tree that I found, and I hope this helps somebody who maybe didn't come from a very good situation up front. Somebody who maybe came from meager beginnings, who would aspire to go on to become Joan Collins like. Here she is, 88 years old, extremely successful, extremely wealthy, extremely healthy, extremely fit, but most importantly, extremely grateful. So when I walk around my property, I'm always looking at everything. I can tell if a tree is falling down. I can see where the bucks are rubbing. They're going to start here within the next month. I can tell where there's new growth. I can see maybe I'll find a volunteer plant. Like this spring, I found a bunch more Virginia burning bushes that I dug up from the woods and put in more desirable ornamental locations in the yard, this type of thing. When I was building one of our privacy hedges 3 years ago, I was looking for eastern red cedars that were growing in the meadow around the tree lines, because they grow in thick, they grow in relatively fast, they build a nice privacy hedge. And I came upon one that was being smothered out, completely suffocated on one side by undergrowth. The canopy of the forest plus the undergrowth, the weeds were being more aggressive in their growth, and they were stealing the sunshine and the nutrients from the soil from this cedar. Half of this cedar tree was very lush, it was very full, it was perfectly formed. The other half was bare. No branches, nothing coming out of the side of it. I saw that tree and I thought, that tree reminds me a lot of myself. It's got so much potential. It wants to do the best it can, but it's not in a very good situation right now where it currently is. Because I've been there in life, and I believe everybody watching has as well. And I'm not talking about where I came from, how I was brought up, how I was raised. I'm talking about how we all, at times, find ourselves in situations in life that are not very pleasant. They're not very comfortable. We're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to do the best we can with what we have to work with. But, it seems like there's canopy, there's undergrowth, there's, lack of sun, lack of nutrients. We can't give up. We've got to keep pushing for a better situation, okay? So I took my shovel and I dug that tree up and I planted it there in our privacy hedge. And when my wife saw it, she was livid. She said, all these other trees look perfect. You got like half a tree here. It's grown on one side, none on the other. And I explained to her about how I'd taken the bare side and I'd made sure that side's going to be the side facing the sun. And I said, when we water the trees, this one's getting extra. This year we put fertilizer, that one got extra. I said, you give this tree time and it will prosper. It will be the most beautiful tree on this tree line. This tree reminds me of a scene in the movie Seabiscuit. When they had a horse, the guy that went down to Mexico, got the quickie marriage, ended up getting a horse and a trainer while he was down there. The horse he bought, Seabiscuit, it was not Seabiscuit, but the trainer had taken on a horse, had broken its leg in a race. They were going to put it down, and the trainer said, hey, if you're just going to kill it, I'll save you a bullet. He took it, and he nursed this horse back to health, and of course, this became Seabiscuit's companion, not in racing, but just friend, girlfriend. And the guy that was looking to buy a horse and hire a trainer asked him, said, why would you do that? That horse is good for nothing. It broke its leg. What use does it have? And the trainer said, well, just because it's beat up and banged up a little bit don't mean it's worth throwing his whole life away. And fix her, get her better. She could be a good, hot trotter, pacer, whatever. There's a whole lot of life left in that horse. No need to throw it all away over a broke leg. And that was a very touching moment in the movie. And I read the book, and the book was wonderful too. Better than the movie, aren't they always? But that movie was really good. I almost cried, and I get chills singing about it, because isn't that all of us? At some point in life, we find ourselves in a situation, we don't throw it all away or say, well, it was all worth nothing, because of the current bad situation. That was the same thing with that tree, and that tree is gorgeous now. Let me show you the proof in the tasting of the pudding. Okay, here's the tree in question I've just described. Originally, as you can see, and there are still no limbs down here on this side. All the limbs, the original limbs were over here, going through here. It was coming out of right there where the field meets the forest. The undergrowth was starving it out. It couldn't get sun. But I thought, if we put it here and put the bare side facing the sun, this tree's got a chance. That was 3 years ago. This entire top portion has grown since then. The tree's now 7.5, 8 feet tall. Started out at about 5 feet with only branches on one side. So this shows it doesn't matter how battered up and beaten and maybe how slow of a start you had because of maybe not the best beginning situation, but it's not about where you begin. And it's not necessarily about where you end up. It is about the journey. And know that despite your beginning, you can change the direction of your journey and therefore change the end of your story. There you have it. See how beautiful that tree is? And guess what? That tree is not any more or less beautiful than every single one of you watching this video. Okay, maybe you're in a bad spot right now. That tree was in a terrible spot. Just stay positive. Remember what Joan Collins says. When you wake up every morning, you're not feeling so good, think of my buddy Taylor Twyman in what he lived with. Constant pain, constant illness. And every time you asked him how he was doing, he always said, better than I deserve. I really believe most of us are in that position. And again, be grateful each day for what you have, and you'll soon forget about what it is you think you need. I believe that's about everything this channel's about. See you for more next time.